Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Last night we were able to set up this 4-month long range calendar. Today we will be filling it in. So as I mentioned in yesterday's video, I have a process of documenting long-term work activities that are going to take more than one day. Anything that is happening for my son's school related to whether or not it's open or closed, if I'm going to have to get a sitter for the day, anything that could potentially impact my everyday schedule at work goes on my long-term wall calendar at work, and now it will be going into this long-term 4-month overview in my work bullet journal. The purpose of these kinds of overviews in my planning regimen is for me to know when things are going to be a little bit different than usual. So there are things that happen for me every week or every month that I am fairly aware of, but there are some things that might be a little bit different, like days off, days that my company is closed, days that my son has off randomly, because in the Hawaii school system, sometimes there's more holidays than I'm used to being from the East Coast. So there's lots of things that can come up and kind of catch me by surprise. So I don't like being caught by surprise, and this kind of counteracts that. So what I do is I highlight times when I have off from work, times that my son has off from school, major presentations that are going to require more than 1 or 2 days of preparation for me at work, times when my research assistant is going to be out of town, or other things that could just potentially impact my everyday general functioning at work. Because I'm doing very long-term planning, I like to use my Friction pens and highlighters, because when you're planning for things that are 2 or 3 or 4 months away, it is likely that there might be some changes. So I like using my erasable products when I'm planning anything past like a week or 2. Today I'll be using these colors to denote different things. So I use a blue for my son, and this is consistent with the color scheme that I use on my wall calendar at work. Red is for times where my company is closed. Green is for work-related matters, this light green. This darker green is in case anything is happening with my husband that potentially affects my work schedule. So my husband's in the military, so if he's like away on training or doing something like that, then I use this just so that I know I'm gonna be like single parenting it for a little while. Pink are for any presentations or major things that I'm leading at work, and then purple is for my assistant in the event that like she's going to be away, she's going to be training, or she's not going to be in. I want to make sure that I document that as well. I'm going to start off by marking off days that I don't have work or that my office is closed. I do that with a big red X because this is really just for work-related matters, so it's a big X to remind me not to schedule anything for those days. So I know that I'm going to have Memorial Day off on the 28th. And I also know that I'm going to have the Friday before Memorial Day off as well. Then in June, I don't have any days off. And then in July, I have the 4th of July off, which is a Wednesday. And then the 5th, which is a Thursday. Then in August, I have August 17th off. I'm not really sure why I have that day off. I'm going to assume that it's a state-specific holiday because I'm not quite sure why I have that day off. And then September, it's beyond 4 months, so I'm just going to leave that alone. Going back to May, I see that I had a long-term training. I was away from the 7th to the 8th at an all-day training. So I'm going to document that. And then the next all day I'm going to have is the 25th through the 29th of June. and I'm going to be traveling for that one. Then I'm going to be gone from the 23rd to the 27th of July for another training offsite. And then in August, I don't have anything set up for that month for going away. So I'm leaving that as is. Next up is my son's school schedule, and I use blue to highlight things related to his schedule. When he has the day off from school, I use a big blue square around that day, and that just reminds me that I need to figure out childcare for that situation. So on the 28th, he has the day off for Memorial Day. I'm putting that around my ex because I also have the day off, so I don't have to worry about childcare. The next thing that I have written down for him is the 31st, and I put a little square around the date when it's something that is important that I should know about his school schedule, but it's not anything that I have to figure out. So if it's a big square, I know that I have to figure out childcare. If it's a small square, it's just indicating something like the beginning of a semester or the end of a semester. May 31st is his last day of school, which is why I put that little square there, just so that I know that. And then he will be off from school until August 6th. So I've pulled up his academic calendar for next year, so I know that there are several weeks that I have to plan for him to have childcare. So he's going to be gone visiting family from the weekend of the 24th when I go away for business. He'll be leaving also to visit family, and he will be visiting with them until the weekend of the 28th and 29th. So some things for me to note with my son's schedule. He is at a particular camp it's from the 18th through the 22nd, and that does affect my job because his camp doesn't start till later that week than his usual camp. So because of that, it's going to affect my job because I'll be coming in a little bit later. Looking at his school schedule, I also see that he has off for August 17th, and I just saw that it was for Statehood Day. So that is a Hawaii-specific holiday. But I also know that I have that day off from work, so it works out because I don't need to get an extra sitter. Next, I'm going in with my pink pen to document any major events that I am leading at work. So any meetings that I'm leading or major presentations, I note that down with my pink pen. So on the 16th, I am leading a meeting, and then that meeting happens again on the 20th of June. So here's a time when I could potentially identify a conflict because I know that I'll be going into work late and I need to get to his camp to pick him up by a certain time. So I know that right after this meeting I have to head right out because it's going to take me a little while to get over to his camp. So I'm glad that I was able to identify that, and this is the kind of layout that allows me to do some of that very specific forward planning. It looks like I have several things happening in this month of May. So I have a presentation on the 17th and on the 24th and on the 30th and then on the 7th again, on the 14th and on the 21st. Alright, so it's 6 weeks of that meeting that I'll be leading. In July, I will be leading another meeting on the 18th. And then in August, I have that once more. I'm going to use this thinner purple friction pen to write down when my assistant will be taking vacation. She's going to be on extended vacation, so I don't want to use the thicker ink because it's going to go through several days. So she leaves on vacation the 23rd of May. and then she is back June 7th. So this gives me a good idea of how many things are coming up, where people are going to be, and where I need to adjust my schedule. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, this is just a good way for me to keep track of things that don't happen as regularly or as often. That way I'm not caught off guard when something pops up into my schedule that is not usually there. I really like the concept of having the months kind of go straight down. This is something that I noticed that I have 6 continual weeks of doing something because I'm taking over a meeting that I wasn't in charge of last year. So now I see that that group of meetings happens back to back to back, kind of at the end of the academic year. So I'm noticing some of those patterns. I really like this system, so much in fact that I'm going to set up the fourth quarter of 2017 right after this, and I think I might also duplicate this in my personal bullet journal so that I can keep track of things that are happening with my son, things like book fairs or trips or things like that that maybe I need a heads up on but don't necessarily affect my work. And that is how I differentiate my work bullet journal from my home bullet journal or my personal bullet journal, is that anything in here that could potentially affect my work is in this guy, whereas things that I just need to be aware of, like maybe I need to pack a disposable lunch for my son because he's going on a field trip, those kinds of things don't go in my work bullet journal because they don't affect my work schedule, at least theoretically they don't. That's it for today, guys. Until next time, I hope this video brought you some utility and joy.